The Albanese government is blaming this huge increase in electricity prices on the war in Ukraine, which is stupid. It's the war here on coal that's the blame. Prices are always going to rise, and we started blowing up our own coal-fired power stations, driving a third of them out of business in a decade with our global warming policies, with most of the rest now set to close in a decade and a bit. But the war in Ukraine has made things worse, that's true, and the fallout from that war could get a lot worse yet. It's 8 months now since Russia invaded Ukraine, expecting to knock it over in a few days. Now Russian forces, they've been destroyed, they've been pushed back, and Russian President Vladimir Putin, in a panic, has had to rush in fresh recruits, dragged off the street, literally in some cases, and sent to the front with almost no weapons, no food, and no training, like these soldiers complaining from the Eastern Front.
Все наше обеспечение. Патронов нет.
Как здесь? Вот здесь передок. Без обучения, без всего отправили сюда.
So Putin is now looking for an excuse to go mega, maybe even nuclear, and is doing that by sending out his foreign affairs minister to claim that it's actually Ukraine planning to use a dirty bomb that releases radioactive material.
We have concrete information regarding Ukrainian scientific institutes having technologies which allow them to make a dirty bomb.
This could get very ugly. Joining me is General Jack Keane, a retired four-star general and former Vice Chief of Staff of the US and US Army Chairman. He's now Chairman of the Institute of Study of War. General Keane, thanks for your time. Russia claiming the Ukrainians are preparing a dirty bomb. What is the real danger here?
Well, certainly the Russians have brandished the potential use of a nuclear weapon almost since the start of the war. Now they're fabricating a story that it's the Ukrainians who are going to prepare a conventional weapon that has radiation associated with it and set that off inside of Ukraine as a false flag operation and blame it on the Russians. The fact is that the brandishing of nuclear weapons from the outset, nobody has bought into that whatsoever, although they've been concerned about it, certainly. And now here we have what the Russians do a lot of, Andrew, is phony information campaign. They use it constantly. In this case, no less than the Minister of Defense has called his counterparts in the United States, in the United Kingdom, and also in France. And they've also solicited this thought with the United Nations, so much so that the nuclear watchdog is going to send a couple of inspectors to Ukraine. But nobody is buying it, Andrew. Everybody knows the Russians are lying through their teeth. And what are the Russians trying to accomplish here? Two things. They want the world to stop supporting Ukraine because of the fear of this event taking place. And number two, they want the West, led by the United States, to force President Zelensky into negotiations. Neither one of those things are going to happen. The West is not going to stop its support for Ukraine. And Zelensky, whose military is defeating the Russian military on the battlefield and retaking territory and liberating his Ukrainian citizens from Russian control, is not going to go to a ceasefire or to negotiations, which is what the Russians want. They want him to stop that offensive. He's not going to stop. He's going to keep coming because it makes sense to liberate as many people as he can.
Yeah, well, we'll see whether this is Russia's excuse to use a bomb itself or whatever. It's quite scary what's going on there. Last weekend, General Keane, we saw Chinese dictator Xi Jinping effectively being anointed dictator for life and revealing his new top leadership team, the Standing Committee of the Politburo. Every one of them on the Xi team, any people that weren't are out. And that's also after he had former President Hu Jintao dragged out of the Communist Party Congress on the weekend very publicly and against his will, allegedly because he was feeling sick. What does all this mean for the world and for the risk of war?
I don't think it's good. I mean, this is about as close to a coronation as the Chinese Communist Party can have. There's 2,300 delegates in the room, all swearing their loyalty to President Xi. And the features of his regime, as he has characterized them in his own words, he has used the term the struggle to determine and define the path forward, which means, in most people's interpretation of that, is that repression is going to increase at home as well as purges, and aggression it will increase abroad as well as confrontation. That is the likely path forward. And many were hoping that when it came to who we would appoint and surround him with the 6 other leaders as part of the Politburo Standing Committee, that there would be a recognition that there are absolute economic headwinds taking place now and in the future in China. And the thought would be that President Xi would ease up on state control of the economy and move towards a more open market and liberation of it. Not completely, but just ease up on some of it to give it some flexibility in terms of potential economic growth. And the fact is, Andrew, he removed all of the past people who were involved with the economy or financial markets completely from the regime that just turned over. And that was a marked decision on his part. So he is doubling down on state control of the economy, on pushing back on private enterprise, and emphasizing the state ownership of companies inside of China, state-owned enterprises, they refer to them as. He's going to continue the COVID lockdowns. And this is not good for the world looking at President Xi. We pretty much accepted the fact that hardline policies would continue. I think they're likely going to increase. And as pertains to Taiwan and the potential conflict, I think the level has gone up in terms of the danger of that. We don't know the timing of it, but we got to get prepared for it. And what Australia and China are doing in terms of coming together and increasing their defenses and recognizing that China is a threat to the stability and security of the region is significant. I meant to say Japan and Australia. And that is very significant undertaking that's taken place. And the United States has much to do here with increasing its own military deterrence in the region. It's not adequate enough, and it has eroded through the years. And we have to have a sense of urgency, Andrew, in getting on with it.
General Keane, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Yeah, great talking to you, Andrew, as always. Thank you.